What if the biggest obstacle standing between you and your peace of mind isn't some grand external force, but rather the people you surround yourself with? Think about it. We live in a world obsessed with connection, social media feeds flooded with curated lives, endless group chats buzzing with noise, and workplaces that demand constant collaboration. But at what cost? Beneath the surface of these interactions lies an invisible danger: toxic people. These are individuals who drain your energy, distort your focus, and manipulate your emotions without remorse. And here's the kicker. They're not always obvious. They don't wear signs or announce themselves. Instead, they slip into your life disguised as friends, colleagues, even family members. Today, we're diving deep into how to identify these energy vampires, the subtle red flags, the patterns of behavior, and the psychological tactics they use to keep you trapped. But more importantly, we're going to explore what a Stoic would do when faced with such threats. Because let me tell you something, Stoicism wasn't built for comfort zones. It was forged in the fires of chaos, a philosophy designed to help its followers navigate treacherous waters while maintaining their inner strength. In 2025, where distractions are louder and relationships move faster than ever before, this ancient wisdom becomes more relevant than ever. By the end of this video, you'll have clarity on two things. First, how to spot toxic people before they sink their hooks too deep. And second, how to protect yourself using principles rooted in self-discipline, rationality, and unshakable resolve. You won't just walk away informed, you'll walk away armed. Armed with tools to reclaim control over your time, your thoughts, and ultimately your life. So buckle up. This isn't just another self-help lecture, this is survival training for the modern battlefield of human interaction. To understand how to identify toxic people, we first need to unravel why they exist in the first place. Human beings are social creatures, wired for connection, but not all connections are created equal. Some relationships uplift us, challenge us to grow, and push us toward our highest potential. Others, they drag us down, exploit our vulnerabilities, and leave us questioning our worth. The reason toxic people thrive is simple. They prey on weaknesses, both in others and within themselves. Here's the brutal truth. Toxic behavior often stems from insecurity. These individuals feel powerless in their own lives, so they project that emptiness onto everyone around them. They might belittle you to make themselves feel superior. They could sabotage your success because your progress threatens their stagnation. Or worse, they manipulate you into dependency, ensuring they always have someone to lean on when their world crumbles. But let's be clear, this isn't about pitying them. Understanding their motivations doesn't excuse their actions. If anything, it sharpens your awareness of just how dangerous they can be. Now here's where things get tricky. Toxicity isn't always blatant. Sure, there are the obvious offenders, the narcissists who demand constant admiration, the manipulators who twist every conversation to suit their agenda, the drama magnets who thrive on conflict. But what about the subtler types? The friend who subtly undermines your confidence with backhanded compliments, the co-worker who takes credit for your ideas but never lifts a finger to help, the family member who guilt-trips you into prioritizing their needs over your own. These wolves in sheep's clothing are harder to spot, but no less destructive. And why does this matter now more than ever? Because 2025 isn't just another year, it's a tipping point. Technology has made it easier than ever to form shallow connections while deepening our isolation. Social media algorithms reward outrage and division, creating echo chambers that amplify negativity. People are lonelier, angrier, and more desperate for validation. In this environment, toxic personalities flourish like weeds in cracked pavement. They feed off the chaos, using fear, envy, and resentment to keep you tethered to them. But here's the silver lining. Stoicism offers a shield against all of this noise. At its core, Stoicism teaches us to focus only on what we can control: our thoughts, our actions, our responses. Everything else? That's outside our sphere of influence. A Stoic doesn't waste energy trying to change toxic people or fix their brokenness. Instead, they recognize the warning signs early and take decisive action to protect their inner peace. So how do you spot these predators before they sink their claws too deep? What patterns should you look for? And once you've identified them, what steps can you take to neutralize their impact on your life? This is where the real work begins. By understanding the psychology behind toxic behavior and equipping yourself with timeless Stoic principles, you'll learn to navigate even the most treacherous social landscapes without losing yourself in the process. Let's cut through the noise and get to the heart of the matter. Toxic people aren't one-dimensional villains. They're complex, often skilled manipulators who operate in ways that can be hard to detect until it's too late. But here's the good news. They leave behind traces, patterns, red flags, and once you know what to look for, you'll start seeing them everywhere. The first hallmark of a toxic person is their inability to take responsibility for their actions. Ever notice how they always have an excuse? If something goes wrong, it's never their fault, it's yours or someone else's, or just bad luck. This refusal to own up isn't accidental, it's a survival mechanism. By shifting blame, they avoid accountability and keep the spotlight off their flaws. For example, imagine a coworker who consistently misses deadlines but blames management or the system. Over time, this behavior erodes trust and creates chaos in the workplace. A Stoic would see this for what it is, an attempt to deflect attention and refuse to engage in the drama. Instead, they'd focus on controlling their own performance and maintaining their integrity. Next, let's talk about emotional manipulation. Toxic people are masters at playing on your feelings. They might guilt-trip you into doing things you don't want to do, using phrases like, "If you really cared about me, you'd..." Or they'll gaslight you, making you question your reality by saying things like, "That's not what happened," even when you know it is. Picture a friend who constantly accuses you of being selfish when you set boundaries, twisting your reasonable decisions into acts of betrayal. To a Stoic, this kind of manipulation is irrelevant. Why? Because emotions are seen as external forces, things we cannot fully control. A Stoic wouldn't allow themselves to be swayed by guilt or fear. Instead, they'd calmly reinforce their boundaries, knowing that protecting their mental clarity is far more important than appeasing someone else's demands. Another telltale sign of toxicity is their need for control. These individuals thrive on dominance, whether it's overt or covert. They micromanage, dictate terms, and insist on having the final say in every situation. Think of a partner who insists on monitoring your phone or dictating who you can spend time with. Their behavior screams insecurity, yet they frame it as concern or love. A Stoic understands that freedom lies in self-mastery, not submission to another's whims. Rather than engaging in power struggles, they detach emotionally and evaluate whether the relationship aligns with their values. Finally, toxic people are notorious energy vampires. They drain you, not because they mean to, but because their presence is inherently exhausting. Conversations with them feel like walking through quicksand. You leave feeling depleted, frustrated, or even angry at yourself for letting them pull you into their drama. Imagine a family member who calls you daily to vent about their problems, never offering solutions or gratitude in return. While empathy is valuable, a Stoic knows when enough is enough. They recognize that pouring energy into someone who refuses to help themselves is a waste of resources better spent elsewhere. So ask yourself, do any of these traits sound familiar? Have you encountered someone who fits this profile? The key takeaway here is that toxic people rely on your participation to sustain their dysfunction. Without your energy, your validation, your compliance, they lose their grip. And that brings us to the deeper layers of protection, a Stoic mindset combined with strategic action. Now that we've identified the red flags, it's time to go deeper. Toxic people don't just operate on surface-level manipulation, they're architects of chaos, often employing subtle tactics that can leave you questioning your own judgment. To truly protect yourself, you need to understand not only what they do, but how they do it. This is where things get fascinating, and where Stoicism becomes your ultimate weapon. One of the most insidious traits of toxic individuals is their ability to create dependency. They make you feel like you need them in some way, whether emotionally, financially, or socially. A classic example is the friend who alternates between showering you with praise and tearing you down. One moment, they're your biggest cheerleader. The next, they're undermining your confidence. This push and pull dynamic keeps you hooked, constantly seeking their approval while doubting your self-worth. From a Stoic perspective, this tactic is laughably ineffective if you refuse to play along. Why? Because Stoicism teaches us that our value doesn't come from external validation, it comes from within. By grounding yourself in your own sense of worth, you render their manipulative games powerless. Another hallmark of toxicity is triangulation, a psychological term for creating conflict between people to maintain control. Picture a co-worker who subtly pits you against another colleague by saying things like, "Well, Sarah said she could handle this project no problem." Suddenly, you're competing for favor, second-guessing your abilities, and wasting energy on unnecessary rivalry. A Stoic would see through this ploy immediately. They'd recognize that comparisons are irrelevant and focus instead on their own performance. Remember, Stoicism isn't about winning petty battles, it's about staying above the fray. But perhaps the most overlooked aspect of toxic behavior is its cyclical nature. These individuals rarely change unless they face significant consequences, and even then, transformation is unlikely. Their patterns repeat endlessly because their motivations remain unchanged. For instance, consider the partner who repeatedly cheats, apologizes profusely, and promises to do better, only to betray you again months later. Each cycle chips away at your trust, leaving you trapped in a loop of hope and disappointment. Here's where Stoicism shines. It reminds us that we cannot control others' actions, only our response to them. If someone consistently betrays your trust, the rational choice is to walk away. Not out of anger, but out of self-respect. And let's address something crucial. Toxic people thrive in environments of ambiguity. They exploit gray areas, bending rules and rewriting narratives to suit their needs. This is why clarity is one of your strongest defenses. A Stoic approaches relationships with clear expectations and non-negotiable boundaries. For example, if a friend habitually cancels plans last minute, a Stoic wouldn't tolerate excuses. They'd simply stop making plans until the other person demonstrates reliability. It's not about punishing them, it's about protecting your time and energy. Finally, here's a little-known insight. Toxic people often target those who lack assertiveness. They sniff out vulnerability like predators circling prey. The irony: assertiveness alone can deter many toxic personalities. When you communicate firmly and without apology, you signal that you won't be easily swayed. A Stoic practices this daily, cultivating an unshakable demeanor that repels manipulation. Think of it as building an invisible shield, one that deflects negativity before it reaches you. So how do you take these insights and turn them into action? What practical steps can you take to fortify your life against toxic influences? In the next section, we'll explore real-world techniques inspired by Stoic philosophy, equipping you with tools to safeguard your mind, your relationships, and your future. Now that we've dissected the anatomy of toxic behavior and armed ourselves with Stoic wisdom, it's time to put theory into practice. These aren't just abstract ideas. They're actionable strategies you can start using today to reclaim your energy, protect your peace, and fortify your boundaries. Let's break it down step by step. The first line of defense against toxicity is mastering your reactions. Toxic people thrive on emotional responses, anger, guilt, frustration, because it gives them power over you. A Stoic knows better. They understand that while you can't control someone else's behavior, you can control how you respond. Here's a simple exercise. Whenever you feel triggered, pause and ask yourself, is this within my control? If it isn't, and let's be honest, most things aren't, release it. Don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you rattled. Practice detaching emotionally by reframing their actions as reflections of their issues, not yours. Repeat this mantra: their chaos is not my burden. Boundaries are non-negotiable limits that define what you will and won't tolerate. Toxic people hate boundaries because they disrupt their ability to manipulate. Start small. If a friend constantly interrupts, you during conversations calmly say, "I'd appreciate it if you let me finish," before responding. If a family member guilt trips you into doing something you don't want to do, respond with clarity. "I care about you, but I also need to prioritize my well-being right now." The key is consistency. Once you set a boundary, enforce it every single time. A Stoic doesn't waver under pressure. They stand firm, knowing that boundaries are acts of self-respect, not selfishness. Sometimes the best defense is strategic retreat. You don't have to cut someone out entirely to protect yourself. You can simply reduce your exposure to their toxicity. This might mean limiting interactions to group settings where their behavior is less likely to escalate, or keeping conversations brief and purposeful. For example, if a coworker consistently vents negativity without offering solutions, politely excuse yourself after a few minutes. "I hear you, but I need to focus on my tasks now." Over time, this sends a clear message: your time and energy are valuable, and you won't waste them on unproductive drama. Toxic people often exploit our insecurities, so the more aware you are of your vulnerabilities, the harder it becomes for them to manipulate you. Spend a few minutes each day reflecting on your thoughts and behaviors. Are you seeking validation from others? Do you struggle to say no? Be brutally honest with yourself. It's the first step toward building resilience. A Stoic views self-awareness as a form of strength, not weakness. By understanding your triggers, you can anticipate toxic tactics and neutralize them before they take hold. Surround yourself with people who uplift and inspire you. Positive influences act as buffers against toxicity, reminding you of your worth when toxic individuals try to undermine it. Seek out relationships built on mutual respect and shared values, people who challenge you to grow rather than drag you down. When in doubt, lean on these allies for perspective. Sometimes, all it takes is an outside voice to remind you that a toxic person's words aren't truth, they're distortion. Finally, know when to walk away. Some relationships are beyond repair no matter how hard you try. A Stoic understands that loyalty shouldn't come at the cost of personal integrity. If someone repeatedly violates your trust, disrespects your boundaries, or drains your energy without remorse, it's time to let go. Walking away doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. As Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Use that power to create a life free from unnecessary burdens. These techniques aren't quick fixes, they require discipline and commitment. But over time, they'll transform the way you interact with toxic people, and more importantly, the way you view yourself. Instead of feeling like a victim, you'll embody the calm confidence of someone who refuses to be shaken. Let's bring this journey full circle. At the heart of everything we've discussed lies a simple yet profound truth. Toxic people don't define you. Your response to them does. They may try to pull you into their chaos, manipulate your emotions, or drain your energy, but they only succeed if you let them. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Life is filled with challenges, but our power lies in how we choose to face them. By mastering your reactions, setting boundaries, and prioritizing your inner peace, you reclaim control, not just over your relationships, but over your entire existence. Think about it. What would your life look like without the weight of toxic influences? How much more clarity, focus, and joy could you experience if you stopped giving your energy to those who don't deserve it? These aren't hypothetical questions. They're invitations to reimagine your reality. You have the tools now. Will you use them? As we move through 2025, a year that promises even greater complexity and noise, remember this: true strength isn't about dominating others. It's about rising above pettiness and protecting your soul. A Stoic doesn't waste time trying to change toxic people because they know better. Instead, they channel their energy into becoming unshakable, immovable, and free. That freedom starts with one decision: to no longer tolerate behaviors that diminish your worth. So here's my final question for you. Are you ready to take back your power? Are you willing to draw a line in the sand and declare, this far and no further? If the answer is yes, then congratulations. You've already taken the first step toward a stronger, calmer, and more resilient version of yourself. Before you go, I want to leave you with this. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you dealt with toxic people before? What strategies worked for you? And what lessons did you learn along the way? Let's build a community of support and wisdom, one where we rise together instead of being dragged down. And if this video resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more content designed to help you live boldly and intentionally. The battlefield of human interaction is fierce, but armed with Stoic principles, you're unstoppable. Now go out there and show the world what you're made of.